today we're going to discuss the book Indistractable, How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life by Nir Eyal. And I wasn't exactly sure how to say his last name, so hopefully I got that right. I'm going to just make sure that we're live and everything's good and going. Looks like we're good. We're live. I just want to get it. It's kind of loading slowly. Okay, it looks like we're good. So I'm just going to share this really quickly. All right. So if you are joining us live, comment, let us know you're there. If you have questions or thoughts, if you've read this book, let us know. If you do watch the replay, give us a hashtag replay so we know you're there. We're going to actually break this down into a 3-part series. So today we're just going to talk a little bit about the book, part 1 and 2 of the book. And then next week, we're going to come back. Janine and I, over the weekend, are going to implement some of the hacks that Nir recommends. And then we're going to discuss the changes we both made and then how it's helped or didn't help in our daily life. So if you have the book and you are reading it, let us know. If you haven't gotten the book, I am going to put links. Oh, there it is. I'm going to put links in the comments to how you can find out more about Nir, where like his Twitter. I'll put that in there. He posts in there a lot, and then where you can purchase the book. So we'll put those links in the comments when we're done. And like I said, next week we will be back to talk about, we're just going to be our own guinea pigs and see how it goes. So to start, I just wanted to, give you a little bit of information about the book. Janine and I will talk about, what we took from it. And as of right now, I'm just finishing like part 4 or something like that. But this is the kind of book where you got to like read the whole thing, then go back and apply. Because I feel when I started reading it, I started wanting to apply it, but then I felt like I was never going to get through the book. So it's like, okay, read the whole thing, then go back and start to apply it, right? So I feel like that about a lot of books that I've read. If I start trying to apply it in the moment, then I never finish the book. And then anyway, so we're going to just start to kind of introduce the book. So obviously the title Indistractible, so it talks about how to gain more traction versus distraction. And his main, the 4, I don't know what you call them, but pieces of the puzzle are, he puts it into a T, and on opposite sides, one is distraction and one is traction. And then there's internal and external triggers that he talks about. So he starts off the book with a story about his daughter, and they were having time together. And the daughter asked him, they were going through this like workbook, and one of the questions was, what superpower would you want? And when it was his daughter's turn, she was talking about her superpower, but in that moment, he picked up his phone and started to respond to a work message or email, something like that. And he admitted that, and then she was asking him, what would the superpower be that you wanted? And he realized that he didn't even listen. He hadn't even heard what she was saying. And so he felt really badly about it. He apologized. And then what he did was he went to the extreme and like removed all technology from his life and realized that really wasn't the answer, because that then still opened up for more distractions. So what he talks about is understanding the root of why you are wanting to be distracted. So he talks about how distractions are a way for us to avoid pain or discomfort. So if we understand what the root of it is, then we can better change our mindset around it in order to gain traction versus allow ourselves to be distracted. So in part 1, Janine, what was your biggest takeaway from because it's about mastering your internal triggers. So understanding them, understanding what gives us discomfort, and I have what my biggest takeaway was, but what was yours?
Well, I think that the connection that he made there specifically was when he took away all the especially digital distractions. It's when he then had time to realize that the distractions weren't actually external at all. They were internal. And that's what led
Yeah.
him to starting this framework of building it from internal. And I just want to point out that he's the author of the book Hooked, which is the Bible in the tech industry about how to get users of tech applications in particular hooked and coming back based on, they do hardcore research on monkeys and behavior and neuropsychology and everything else. And so the irony that he wrote that book, he's a victim of it with his own family that he found in this situation with his daughter, but then had to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing with Indistractable.
And he tells a
really
story
powerful
about a woman who got a pedometer, and then she got so obsessed with gaining her steps for the day that it was like interrupting her sleep. And she was doing it during work, and she was like waking up in the middle of the night like, oh, I can get my last 2,000 steps in, and she'd be like walking the stairs in her house. And I mean, that sounds crazy, but I feel like it's probably not that far off from other things. If we all really examine our day, I know that like I can get lost in TV shows, and next thing I know, it's like 4 hours later, I'm like, what in the hell just happened to my day? Like I know that happens, like it happens to me, and the thing that she realized was that her need for the distraction was because she was struggling in life, in her work, in her marriage, and she was using that as a distraction from the discomfort of having to deal with those issues. One of the things that I found most interesting was that we are, as a species, essentially built to be dissatisfied, because that's essentially that's how we've been able to advance as a species. Survival of the fittest. We constantly are trying to achieve better, and he talks about 4 psychological factors: boredom, negative bias, rumination, and then the hedonic adaptation. And I thought the last one was the most significant to me, that because I find this in myself, is that when we have a goal and we achieve it, we get there, we're like, okay, it's gonna be perfect. When I get there, everything's gonna be great. And like, if I could just look at my experience in business, I was like, okay, I want to learn this. As soon as I learn this, I have the skill, it's gonna be great. Everything's gonna be great. And so then I learned it, I got there, and then I was like, maybe this isn't exactly what I was looking for, and we always think that once we achieve that, like, we're going to be so much happier, and we're going to be, I think the example he gave was people that win the lottery, they then other life things don't feel as, they don't feel as satisfied after they do that. And so, but understanding that we're built for dissatisfaction almost, and him saying that, he said, if we understand that, then we can utilize that as a motivation. So instead of like beating ourselves up for not being satisfied or being unhappy, just understanding that it's human nature, and then we can, turn around and become more productive, effective human beings,
Yep. And depending on your personality type, that can look different. It can be that you're super motivated and you're dragging yourself across the finish line only to find you're disappointed. And for other people, it's just that goal or the meaning of the goal diminishes gradually the closer you get to it, until by the time you get there, it's like, and you're already got that next one going.
Yeah.
It can look different ways to different people.
Yeah. And so going back to the root cause, so I thought he had a good, I wrote this quote down. It said, without understanding and tackling root causes, we're stuck being the helpless victims in a tragedy of our own creation. That really stuck out to me, because ultimately, if we don't understand the root cause, if we take one distraction away, we're just going to find another, right? And so then we're just in this kind of helpless cycle he used the example of playing pool. So in order to get the ball into the pocket, was it the cue ball, the cue, or the player that actually caused it to happen? The root cause is the player. The cue and the cue ball are the proximate causes. So understanding that a phone and looking at social media is just a proximate cause. It's not the root. The root of the issue is something that we are trying to avoid, some sort of discomfort, right? And understanding that. And what is the discomfort? That we're trying to avoid, and why do we put things off? And I think that in business, something in the business, I know you and I go through this a lot, like where there's a task, and and I know I've said this to you, and I'm like, I don't know, I just really don't want to do this, and I don't know why, but I'm avoiding it like the plague. I don't know why I don't want to do it, but ultimately I'm either, afraid that I'm going to fail and not do well at it. I know I don't know how to do it, or, whatever the case may be. But so in business, being able to identify what it is that is causing you to put this thing off, and then find that solution. So maybe it's, you just need to like bite the bullet and do it, right? Suck it up. Or it's, you need to have a team that you can delegate this thing to, right? So if we're kind of trying to bring it back to business in the way, not everything can be delegated. Some things, you need to do, and sometimes there is discomfort. But one of the things he recommends is changing your mindset about it, thinking about it in a different way. Instead of, oh, I got to get, I really need to get this done, I really don't want to do it. It's, okay, if I get this done, or when I get this done, I put time aside, I'm going to get this done. And then, then there's a goal at the end or something, trying to rethink it. And he gives examples in the book of how to rethink tasks and things that you need to get done that maybe you don't feel very motivated to do, or you avoid, and find other ways to distract yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of books like Eat That Frog written around that whole topic of just getting that thing that you're dodging the most done.
Yeah, exactly. And I really liked, one of the things he said was, time management is pain management. And I've never really thought about it like that, but it is, it's okay. I know that I need, this time to get this done. I need to just, get it done. I need to avoid the distractions, just get this done. And it's okay, but I can only, really do it for an hour, and managing that discomfort, and trying to not allow yourself to fail. So if you have, this huge long to-do list, but you give yourself like, 4 hours of hard work, and it's and you're not gonna be as motivated, right? Because there's no like end to it. There's no, bounds around it. It fills the block that you give it. And so in order to, make yourself successful, it's rethinking the task, setting aside the time for it. I was trying to think about some of the other things he said, but really ultimately understanding the discomfort or pain that you're feeling, and then you can then go from there. But if you blame it on the distraction, right, then you're just going to find another distraction to fill that time.
Oh, yeah. I prefer having someone else clean my house. But when I was in medical school, I tell you, my house was so freaking clean the week before exams when I was supposed to be studying, because guess what was more painful?
Studying,
Just
yeah.
the stress. Well, it's the stress around the exams.
Right.
It's not like studying that week's any more painful than any other week, but it's that. And I didn't realize I was doing it until after a couple sets of exams. Like, this is starting to form a pattern. But it's just one of those things. I thought it was interesting in that where he said, as far as the to-do list, I mean, we talk a lot about time management and prioritization, and this really just, puts that foundational why of the behavior underneath those things. The to-do list never ends, whether the one thing you put on there has 5 subtasks to it, or the fact that, it's right, we're in business, there's always that next thing to do, and that next thing to do So it really is never ending. He made the comment of not the what, but the why are you doing it? And that refers to prioritization, which brings in the whole Pareto's principle and stuff with, do the things that move the needle the most first. But it can still be a drag if you have that. It's the perception. If you have the feeling that you're never getting everything that needs to get done, that's a perception issue, because you may not be getting things done that you want to, but if they don't move the needle, how important are they? Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And he said, it's not about what you do. He said, it's about, did you accomplish what you set out to do in that time period? So if it's an hour and you're like, all right, I'm going to read 2 chapters of this book, but you end up cleaning the bathroom and vacuuming and like cleaning out the fridge, like it's productive, but it wasn't what you intended to get done, right? Like I think the example he gave is checking a work email is a productive task, will possibly move the needle forward, but doing it while you're meant to be spending time with friends or family is not productive, because that's not what you set out to do during that time, right? It then becomes the distraction. But then what's the root cause of that? Why are you looking to be distracted while you're sitting, trying to spend time with your family? Or like, what's causing that? Like, you are trying to distract yourself from that. So why don't you want to sit down and read those 2 chapters? What's the problem? What is that? Is that not something that you think is important to do right now? Well, then maybe you should have scheduled something else during that hour. Like, something else that was, so I think the introduction and part 1 were really important. It talks a lot about those internal triggers, understanding them, understanding the psychology behind it. So I think those are important. Part 2 is about scheduling, which is like one of my favorite things. So, and I'm going to be honest, like I'm pretty strict about my schedule. I'm a routine person. I live it. I love it. It is my life. Without one, I feel like I am just out treading water in the middle of the ocean without a clue. So, but I will say that so next week when we come back and we talk about some of the hacks we implemented, I'm actually going to go over my schedule, go by his hack and make sure that I have everything in there. But I would say, I have a lot of time. He calls it time boxing. We call it time blocking. I know we've talked about it before. But one of the things that he talks about, and I know that I've talked about this, and I think we might have talked about it in one of our podcasts, but scheduling appointments with yourself, scheduling appointments with your family, with your kids, just like you would with, the dentist or a client or whatever. You're not going to skip a client appointment. But if and so you have to protect that. I think they talk about how people will go, to all sorts of lengths to protect their personal belongings, like security systems and all kinds of stuff. But their time, they're just very wasteful with it. They don't protect their time and putting up boundaries. And I think it's so important. The time blocking. I know people personally, friends that avoid structure and schedule like the plague, but ultimately, we are successful when we have some structure. If we have a wide open time and we have a to-do list that's super long, but we don't have it blocked off. We don't say, okay, we're going to do this during this time, do this during this time. We are more likely to not get anything done than we are to get all of the things on our to-do list done. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and there's a lot of reasons for that. There's no priority to them it's like our brains just naturally focus on deadlines. So doing the blocks puts in this deadline that makes you, you'll just do things faster when you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get done by a certain time.
Yeah. And we naturally procrastinate. So giving yourself deadlines, arbitrary deadlines is super important. Shout out to Kevin, because he does not like arbitrary deadlines, but we appreciate Kevin so much.
Yeah. But it's like they're relatively arbitrary, except we have to work around our human nature.
Everything else that's going on. Yeah.
I prefer routines. I very much so, because I can get so much more done in such a faster time. But at the same time, I live with my husband, who has an irregular schedule. And so balancing those two, it's like the time blocking for me still works, but he has, but I look at my schedule more like a Tetris game. So I have to have a little, it's like, these are the blocks that have to happen and certain ones have to happen by a certain time, but I can move them around blocks of when he's here and when he's not here. We're doing things together. So I have to flex a little, but it's still utilizing the same system to get things done.
And even if, we have time, we have a block of time, you and I, where it's like marketing day. But if I don't have a to-do list for that block of time, nothing gets done. I will find something to fill that time that has nothing to do with what we need to be doing, right? Like if I don't know if I have 3 hours, but I have a list, I will get it done. Because I know there's a list, 1 through 10, whatever, 1 through 3, whatever, whatever needs to get done during that time. But if I don't have anything, I will spend my time, trying either filling it with something that's not meant for that time or could be done at another time, or I'll spend my time trying to come up with a list to do. And by the time I'm done, that time period is up. And I think it's so important. So not just business, but family too. And like family time, like dinner time and, weekend time, if you're, even evenings, like outside with the kids playing, whatever. But he says to put all of those things on the schedule.
Yeah, you need to, because it's giving yourself permission to enjoy that time with your family. And that's super important.
You don't have to think about anything else, right? Because in the evening, you might have a 15-minute period where you check emails, like, after dinner. But then after that, so you don't have to think about emails any other time because that's when it's going to get done. It'll get done in that time. So when you're with your family, you're free. Your mind is free and you can be fully present with your family or friends, or, maybe you're at dinner with friends or whatever the case may be. You're not thinking about anything else because you have a time when those other things will get taken care of. I did like one of the things he mentioned was when you have your blocked schedule, make sure that you share it with the people you work with. So your team, if you work in an office with those people, your boss, the people that work for you, whatever, so that they can see, he says to sync your calendar, make sure that they know, like, I know Janine's entire life because I know her schedule, right? Like it's on there. Like if she's not available and it says she's available, I'm like, okay, when do I need to call the police and do a checkup? Like, because I know, it's just, I know what's going on, where she is. She knows where I'm at because we put everything in a calendar. And so we're able to follow each other and know. And maybe it's a little extreme, but for us, it works because without knowing, it's then I'm sitting here wondering, then we can go into rumination and we can wonder what's going on. Is she upset? Do I need to, is she okay? Is she doing the thing that we talked about, or, whatever?
Well, also, it's like, I don't see it as invasive. I see it as very courteous, right? Because I like knowing when I see your schedule, it's like, I don't want to, when it's not during the day or when during the day, I don't want to interrupt something else.
Right.
That's going on.
Right.
So, and it's like, hey, if I want to talk about something, I would like your attention. So it's not
exactly
happening if I call you when I'm interrupting you in something else. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
absolutely. So again, the first part goes into understanding the internal triggers, the psychological aspect behind it. The second part goes into how to spend your time and to gain more traction. So we're going to come back next week. So part 3 and 4 are about basically implementing these hacks that he has. So we're going to do that. And that's everything from schedule, your phone, your desktop. So we're going to go through, be our own little guinea pigs and go through and implement these things and come back next week and talk about how that went for us, what changes we made, and how it affected our day-to-day life. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you're a schedule person, if you're not a schedule, especially if you're not a schedule person, if you avoid structure, we'd love to hear your comments or thoughts about it. Ask questions. Again, I'll put the links in the comments on how you can obtain the book.
It's super practical.
Okay.
It's not just high-level strategy and theory about
I love that.
behavior.
Yeah.
It's super practical. So if you have the book or get the book and do the hacks along with us, love to hear what you're doing.
That would be awesome to hear feedback. Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure. So we are so happy you joined us today. If you watch the replay, give us a hashtag replay. We'll be back next week at 11 a.m. Eastern on Friday to talk about how it went implementing the hacks that he recommends. So I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Good one.